Welcome everyone to episode 32 of the Worldstone Keep. For today's show, we'll be doing our usual run, possibly finishing with Diablo 2. Appropriate timing, seeing as the Diablo 3 beta is right around the corner. Timing worked out pretty damn good for us. And by
we
us...
planned it this way.
Yes, this was our plan for the beginning. We've known when beta was going to release all this time, over the past year that we've been doing this show. And by us, I mean me, Joe, and my cast members, Jordan, Ken, and Dan. And for introductions this week, we have a question from Rhinox, sent through us through the email. What was the last game you played, and did you like it or not? So, anyone, feel free to jump in.
I'm confused by the question. Does he mean like the last new game? I mean, just the last game you played on... what is the question actually specify?
What's the intent?
It's open to interpretation, so if you want to go new game, go for it.
I'm not sure the last new game...
My answer to both, or like regardless of how you look at it, is StarCraft 2, and yes, I did like it.
I mean, the last game I started playing again was Cataclysm, and you know, I faded out of the whole raiding scene a long time ago, so all I've been doing is killing people in arenas as a healer.
Right on.
It's like, can't touch this. How about you, Dan?
I'm Dan, and the last new game I played was Catherine on PS3, and I loved it. It was pretty frickin' difficult, and that was fun.
What kind of game is that? Is that like one of those horror games?
Horror, puzzle, platformer, relationship sim.
Okay. Interesting.
I read the synopsis on it. It looks so weird.
Seems like I saw something on it. I'm not sure.
I'm Joe. The last game I played was actually one of the little indie games from the Humble Bundle 3, which if you don't know about this, these group of indie developers get together and they throw a bunch of their games into a bundle that you can pay any amount of money you want for. And you choose how much you want to pay. And then the profits they make from it is split up into a certain number of groups. So a portion of the money will go to developers, a portion will go to charity, and stuff like that. So it's a really cool thing.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I've gotten the first one and the second one. So if you're interested in getting some cool games for a good cause, then you should Google the Humble Bundle and check it out. And they're all DRM free and all that, so you can throw them on any computer you want. So yeah,
Nice.
It's a good deal. Yeah, it was, what was the last one I played? Hammer Fight, which is pretty cool. You have like a little flying helicopter type ship with a swinging hammer around it. And so you move the mouse to swing the hammer and knock into other ships. It's pretty cool. And yeah, I did like it. So there's that. There's the intro questions for everyone. Now it's time to get on with the show. We'll be starting out with lore, then closing out Diablo 2 Act 5, going over some news, and closing out the show with some community feedback. So now it's time to toss it over to Jordan and see what we have for lore this week. What do we got, Jordan?
Okay, just a little recap now that I'm all caught up. Last place we left off, Zale had just summoned up Gregus Motzi. Motzi was the guy who was essentially the guardian down in the sub-level that was actually merged with a stalagmite on the ground.
Right.
And, they ended up killing him, mercy killing. Who knows how long he'd been down there in total darkness, not a good state
balls.
to be in. Yeah, it's not a good day. Not a good day. And so he had this bright idea. He said, well, I know he's dead now. I mean, it was my dagger that killed him, so I can summon him up and actually ask him questions this time. And when he does that, he's like, come on, dude, you can say something. Let's hear it. And when he opens his mouth, it's just Diablo, the only thing that he gets a chance to say before he bursts into flames. And the stone around Zale actually clamps down on him, and he goes unconscious. And from there, the story actually flitters onto other areas. Now, Albord, one of the leading guys of the mercenary group, is actually seeing the others off. He decided to stay behind with the captain, and so he just wanted to see his other fellows off. And what's also interesting there is that mercenaries had this superstition: you never can stand and watch a person leave. There was something about if you do, there's a chance you'll never see them again. So since mercenaries tend to live day by day and never really know if they'll make it to the next day, they have a lot of odd little superstitions they live by.
Mm-hmm.
And another aspect that happens along the same time frame is that Kentril decides to confront Lord Khan about the fact that the rooms of the people who went missing are completely empty. They couldn't find a trace of them. And Khan plays dumb. He's just like, well, I don't know. I guess they cleaned it out. I'll look into it. He's just, very courteous and kind. He's like, okay. And going back to the scene with Albord, he's heading back and he actually forgets something. He figures they're already gone. There's no, harm in going back to look, et cetera, et cetera. And when he does, he actually sees his comrades. They never made it out the gate. They were actually being, surrounded, swarmed, and eaten by these monstrous things. They were actually the denizens of the city of Uray. They have these circular mouths and rows of teeth, and they're just these dried husks of bodies, and they're just, ravenous for anything that isn't like them to some degree.
Yikes.
And one of his fellows, he hears just run, right before he gets, taken down, and poor Albord just takes off as fast as he can back toward the palace. He's like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. This, he's just freaking out. And so he's just like, the captain will know what to do. I just got to make it back to the palace. But unfortunately, he never does. He actually gets swarmed and taken down before he gets there. And he knows that he's going to die. There's no doubt about it. But he remembers what Kentril had told him over the years. And that if you're going to die, you go down fighting. So that's what he does. Pulls out his sword and hacks it a few at him before they actually take him down. So now the mercenary group is very thin. You have the captain, you have the big guy Gorst, and then you have, of course, Zale, who's not in any particular good shape now either, and the guy that commissioned them all, of course, the Vizjera mage. So things are pretty much drawing to their final destination by this point. Now, from here, Khan basically asks Sin for help, and Khan actually takes the Vizjera mage Sin down to his private sanctum, and it's filled with all kinds of arcane power, just, literally the kind of place you could feel the powers of the universe, as it were, just really raw arcane force. Kind of place you'd expect to see the wizard in Diablo 3 show up in,
Right.
And Khan's actually offering him this deal. They're, talking about these plans that are rather dire and, a lot of people would never actually consider. But by this point, Sin has already been following the greed train for a while now, and things are starting to make sense in a sort of, very, very bad way. And so they were actually making plans for Kentril as well. In the meantime, though, Zale actually wakes up. His arms are bound back behind him, and he's just kind of really taut and stretched, and he realizes that he's actually up on a stalactite up in the ceiling. Beginning to merge with it.
Wait, what?
Right, just like what had happened with Gregus Matzi, this spell had been cast where he will actually become part of the stone.
Uh-oh.
What do you do if you're in that situation, honestly?
I pull my lightsaber and cut myself out.
That's pretty much exactly very similar, because just like in the previous situation Zale had gotten into, the way that he got out of it was by mind linking with his dagger and pulling it to him, but he could only do that if he could imagine where it was.
Wow.
Thankfully, he's got his little helper that he had summoned up a long time ago and still with him, Humbart Wessel, the skull of the mercenary. And Humbart actually guides him into how to retrieve the dagger, how to do a lot of these different things. And the other thing that, because his body had been laying in the ruins of Uray for so long before he was summoned, he actually gains this sort of ability that no human no living creature on the planet actually has, in that he can see magic in a way that no one else can. So if you had a door that had all these kinds of enchantments that would take a long time to break down, Humbart could actually see them as lines of energy.
Okay. Useful
So,
power.
oh yeah, he's like, Humbart saves me a lot of time. A lot of time and energy. So Humbart actually aids Zale in saving himself in this situation. And while that's going on, Kintril is in a bad spot because there are all these different things that are going on, and none of them make sense. And he finally decides to confront the princess about it, Atana. And all of a sudden, what she's saying is just not making any sense, and it's really frightening because, she's saying things like, I did all this because, you're mine, that was the deal. I get to have you. It doesn't matter what happens to the rest of them. It's like, holy crap, what's going on, It's like, I'm not, and when she takes hold of him, it's really frightening to him because apparently she's much stronger than he thought. And in a panic, they're having this conversation on the balcony, and he actually knocks her off.
Ooh.
And she falls off out in the distance and crunches on the bottom. He's like, "Oh my God, what did I do?"
Whoops.
So now he's freaking out, and he's like, "Well, I got no choice. I have to go to Khan and tell him what happened, And by this point, he goes down and finds them in that private sanctuary I told you about, the really wild and trippy place. And when he does, Khan's like, calm down, it's not a big deal. And he's like, what? How is this not a big deal? And she shows up, all mangled body and everything, and he actually makes her back into her current form. And then it all starts to click. She isn't human anymore. She hasn't been for a long time. Almost like putting yourself in the body of a doll, to some degree.
Ooh.
In that this thing is no longer quite living. And, whatever animates her is not a heavenly power at all.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts to see that everything that's been going on up until this point isn't what it's been presented as. And perhaps those visions he had earlier weren't the toxin of some insect or plant, but actually the real Uray for what it is.
Yikes.
And so at the same time, when Zale actually manages to get himself free, Gorst actually catches him. His luck and surprise. And Humbart actually guides Gorst into what to do. They take him back to his room and pull out this really disgusting vial. Like, who knows what's in this stuff? And he's like, you need to pour that down his throat. And after you do that, we'll be back in good shape. And so the vial actually does revive Zale, and you kind of hear this little monologue in Zale's head, like, well, I'm not sure what Gorst would think if he actually knew what that stuff was that I made, but that's neither here nor there. We necromancers keep our secrets. It's not a good thing a lot of times. It's like you have to have a very strong will to be a necromancer, let's put it that way. And so now that he's back up, Zale basically hides the pain that he's in, and they together go in search of Kintril. And so they know that they have to get down to this hidden sanctum, and they begin to notice that the sentries that are standing by, they look human, they act human to some degree, but after a while they notice they don't blink at all, ever. They're almost like statues. They're actually not living humans. And when they start up a fight with one, and Gorst actually crashes through one with his axe, they actually appear like clay pottery. They are essentially golems. That are very human looking.
Bad.
And Zale gets this idea. It's like, well, you know how magic works in this universe. If a slight tweak on a spell can actually alter it. So what he does is he says the golem spell backwards and actually unmakes them. But the problem is the attackers are very well adapted. So if you use something on one, it won't work again. And so if you're really strong melee-wise, you go to fight this one. If they adapt, you're pretty much screwed because now it's almost impossible to beat them through those means.
Right.
So the things like the Dintrag or the teeth of Tragul or the Bone Spear and whatnot, all of a sudden they don't work on the next target. You're like, oh, this is bad. So Zale gets the idea, and he realizes what's going on. He's like, switch! Gorse, you take my target, I'll take yours, you know. It'll still work on each other's targets. And so they kind of use little tricks like that. Point I skipped over, recalling back, Zale had actually cast the spell to get through some of the sentries without fighting. And it was like they both turned invisible. And he's like, you know, Gorse kind of looked like, what? We're not invisible. And he's like, yeah, we are. It's like, as long as you don't like walk right up to them, they probably won't notice us. So they actually managed to slip on by a few like that.
Nice.
So Necromancer's got all kinds of tricks you'd never actually see in the game.
Heck yeah.
When they reach down to the door of the sanctum, there's actually this huge gargoyle holding the knocker for the door in its mouth, and when they get up to it, it actually springs forth out of the framework and begins to attack them. And, you know, you basically have this huge metal golem that, you know, you'd obviously never be able to take down with a sword or an axe because it'd be like, you know, trying to chop down a metal tree. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So, skipping back, Atana is now restored. Khan is pretty much caught in the lie about what actually happened with Gregus Matsi, you know, and some of the real details actually start to come out. You know, Khan actually did transform Matsi into that guardian, and as it turned out, when Gregus Matsi returned to the realm to set everything straight, he recruited the high priest Tobio to his cause, because even he realized that what Khan had actually done was set the entire kingdom on the path to hell. And it was actually he who set the spell in motion that would kill all of the other people, not Matsi. Matsi, in his last-ditch efforts, realized what had happened and tried to set things straight as best he could. And that bone up on top of the mountain when they found the Key of Light, that arm and whatnot, that was actually Tobio, who was blown up by Khan at the top of the mountain. So a lot of these events actually worked out completely differently than the original story that was told.
Mm-hmm.
So they never managed to finish their quest, obviously, because while they upset the Key of Light, they never could get to the Key of Darkness. The key the Key of Shadow, rather, down in the depths, was never altered because Gregus Matsi was attacked and overcome by that point and became that sentry.
Right.
Now, Kintril tries to flee this situation, but he can't. And Sin is actually controlling him like a puppet, despite what he's trying to do. And he realizes that, in turn, all of this, Khan basically has Sin as a puppet, as it were, because of his own greed. And he tells Kintril, oh, we just need a little bit of your blood. It's not much, you know. I did it earlier, otherwise I'd do it again, because we need it to cast this spell. And all of a sudden it's starting to click. I just walked into the worst place in the worst scenario possible. So, and you know what their actual intent for Kintril here is?
What?
Remember Atana said, you're mine?
Mm-hmm.
They were actually going to turn Kintril just like her.
Ooh.
So she could keep him. Didn't really matter what happened to the rest of the mercenaries, the necromancer or anyone like that. So you can see all this start to play out at once. And
right.
That giant metal gargoyle, back to it with the fight. You know, Gorse had managed to keep it at bay, but he wasn't really making any progress.
Mm-hmm.
And Zale comes up with this idea. He's like, well, it's risky, but I guess it's our only option. I'm going to cast the Iron Maiden, you know, the very classic skill from D2. And when I do that, it's going to return any damage done back at it. So, you know, I'm going to I'm going to let it attack me and see, essentially what happens. And Gorse is like, no, I'm going to do it because you're the only one that can actually use magic. You're the only one that have any shot at defeating this thing. If you're gone, then I'm gone anyway. So we
Yeah.
might as well put our gamble on me. So when he does that, these swipes are actually starting to damage it. And he realizes this, so Gorse really takes a gamble and just exposes his throat, his chest, all these major things. And when he attacks Gorse, actually like rips himself open and rips his own head off.
Whoa.
Just the Iron Maiden is really awesome in the story.
Rad.
Gorse is like, cool. Wish I could have used this back in the day.
Yeah, really.
I would have had so much fun back in those battles. When they enter the sanctum, they don't find what they're looking for. They find that the entire thing is empty.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's still crazy plays, arcane power, blah, blah, blah. But they don't see anyone. But they know that they should be there. Zale specifically used a tracking spell to find out where Kintril was.
Right.
So they're looking around going, okay, did it fail? And he's like, no, it didn't fail. I don't understand. What's going on here? And you start to realize that this place really has other things at work, and it's almost like existing in a parallel universe. And realizing this, Zale starts to use the runes that are flaring and all of these arcane powers for a new spell, and manages to go into that alternate dimension, as it were, to pull Kintril out. And when they do that, Khan and the rest don't actually see them. So you see, it's a very complex situation going on with these works. And the only reason he was able to do that was because Humbar could see it. He could see that there were other things going on that you ordinarily would never be able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, while they're actually trying to do that, Khan actually confesses, what has actually been going on, and you get a lot more of the details, and the real story is told. And the entire time, the reason why all of this happened is that, in all reality, the angel that came to Lord Khan was named Mirakudos. Mirakudos was the one who directed him on this path and how to essentially ascend into heaven and all this, and essentially warped him. And you begin to realize that it wasn't actually an angel. And so Kintril gets this idea. It's like, well, I'm pretty much screwed, but maybe I can stall for time. It's like, okay, I will accept your gift. I'll do all this, but I want to see the archangel for myself. I want to be able to believe,
Mm-hmm.
So he plays up on this, and he's like, I'm so happy, my child, that kind of thing. Very creepy sort of way.
Right.
And so he's like, well, we can't really understand it since we're mortals, but I can show you the same sort of image that I saw. And, up above his head as he's lying on the stone table, he sees the image of Mirakudos, and completely perfect features, and just beyond anything that you could expect any human to actually achieve.
Right.
Long flowing hair, just, a dream of the Aryan race, as it were. But he looks into the eyes, and what he sees isn't what he expects. It's actually just fear and dread and this dark spiraling, out of control feeling the second he looks into the eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he begins to realize what it actually is. And the archangel that set all this in motion was actually Diablo himself.
Ooh.
And like I said, with early on, Diablo had set his sights on Ure long ago,
Mm-hmm.
because a kingdom with no fear was an insult to the Lord of Terror, and he wouldn't stand for it. So he set about every resource he had into bringing this place down. They would know that no mortal faction could stand against the might of the burning hells. So after seeing that, he kind of freaks out, and it's funny because Atana also talks about her experience of the conversion, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And she said when she looked at Mirakudos, she screamed and was overcome with this terrible pain. And she recounts it like, "Can you believe it? I was so silly back then, you know. I couldn't believe that it scared me, and you know, everything's good now." And you're just like, "Oh God, this is a bad place to be." So, with that little bit of time that he had bought himself, Zale managed to usurp some of the power from the runes and teleport himself into this actual place, not the decoy one.
Hmm.
And after they rescue Kentril, Zale actually pieces together all of the story and realizes what the real deal is. And so they have their new plan set. They were going to finish the job that Gregis Matzi wanted to. They have to upset both the Key of Shadow and the Key of Light at the same time. If they can essentially destroy or displace both of those, then Yurei would never have any chance at all of returning at all. This would be the last one. Knowing that Kentril's now gone and they no longer had his blood to play with, Khan basically picks up Sin, throws him on the table, and sacrifices him.
Oh,
Yeah, pretty brutal
dick.
right there. It's like, you've outlived your usefulness here, so we're going to make use of you another way. And of course, Khan's plan was to make the kingdom part of the world again, so that they could actually use it as a gateway for hell. It would be the medium by which all of these different things could happen.
Hmm.
And they decide to split up into two groups. And these two groups, just like history repeating itself, they knew that realistically they would never be able to achieve both in any traditional fashion. But they knew if they split up just like Matzi and Tobias did, they would have a much greater shot. And I think realistically they only needed to disrupt one. If they could do that, it was pretty much all good. So what they decided to do was set about a trick. What Zale actually did after teleporting them out, and it was a good distance from the rest of the kingdom. It was more or less up on the mountainside a little bit, on their way up to where the Key of Light would be.
Hmm.
He wanted to put them somewhere else, but the nature of the spell was a little bit random and a little hard to control, so it didn't actually end up at the Key of Light as they would have wanted. So Zale said, okay, they're going to expect us to split up, but if I can create a decoy using myself, then you guys will have a shot at disrupting the key. So he created a mirror image golem of both Kentril and Gorst to follow him around. That way, when Khan went to look into the whole situation, he would only see the three of them together, not separated.
Right.
So,
Pretty good bit of magic.
yeah. Zale's very clever. I mean, it may take him a minute. Sometimes he'll miss obvious details, and someone else will point out, it's like, oh God, why did I think of that? Other than that, he's very clever. He's pretty much on the ball with strategy and that sort of thing.
Cool. Do we want to leave it there for this week?
Yeah, that sounds about good. And we'll finish everything up next time.
Alrighty, we're gonna close out Diablo 2 Act 5 now, and the last part we saved for this show was Baal himself, which of course is the boss, one of the three primevals, brother to Diablo and Mephisto, and he's the last boss. You fight him in the Worldstone Chamber, and to get there you go through, what is it, the
Worldstone Keep.
Worldstone Keep. You go through our show.
You have to listen to all episodes.
Every episode to fight Baal.
Yeah, good old Baal, the middle brother.
Is he the middle one? Mephisto's the oldest? Diablo's the youngest?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Okay. Yep, so you go through the Worldstone Keep, and if you go AFK in there, Baal is nice to send some lightning bolts or some poison or whatever he sees fit at you.
Yeah. Yeah, no AFKing in the Worldstone Keep.
That's right, pay attention.
Pay attention.
You stop listening, or you start zoning out, and there will be lightning and poison and all kinds of things.
Yeah, doesn't it only hit you if you stand still for too long?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it targets where you're standing.
Yep.
It's rude.
So if you start to hear Baal laughing for no apparent reason, start running.
Get out.
I don't know how many times that killed me. Too many. That's what I get for going AFK, though, right?
That's
Well, I know the first time I don't know, you like look down to do a text or something, and you look back up, you're dead.
Yeah. Like, what the hell?
what happened. There were no monsters.
I killed everything.
Or you're taking a breather, trying to regen some mana, or
Found a cool
Yeah.
item that you're checking out, or you just leveled up even.
rearranging your inventory.
Exactly.
This isn't World of Warcraft. If you want to regen your mana, you keep running.
No stop. And then once you get through the Worldstone Keep, you get to the throne room, right? What's it called? Throne of Destruction?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right, Throne of Destruction, which you see Bale for the first time, and he's hanging out on his little altar, and he starts summoning minions through every act of the game at you.
Right, and unlike all the other levels of the Worldstone Keep, the Throne of Destruction actually does not vary in the layout at all.
That's right,
Once you've seen it once, you'll see it every time exactly the same.
always constant.
Branches off in these side channels with creeps. You've got the middle section, and then in the far back, you've got the throne room itself.
Right, with the portal behind Bale that leads to the Worldstone Chamber, where the
Mhm.
Worldstone is. And so once you fight your way through all those little waves of minions, I think there's like 5, right? 5 waves.
Right, you've got the one representative of each act. So you've got fallen ones and a shaman. Then you've got skeletons and greater mummies. Then you've got
The council.
Right, the council members, and of course, the throwback to the lore there is the Bartek the Bloody,
Mhm.
which I thought was, kind of distasteful for the fact that he played such a huge role in the overall story that killing him in a flash to get to Bale is kind of that, and he doesn't look. He actually appears in both Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, but in Diablo 1 he was a Death Knight. He looked pretty awesome.
Dude, I love the Death
And-
Knights.
Yeah, they I think they were my favorite
Mine too,
monster in Diablo 1.
definitely.
Act 4, you've got, the Balrogs that come out really fast and swarm.
Yeah, those guys are easy. Probably the easiest
then-
out of all of them.
Probably, I mean, the Act 2 ones are actually very hard for the fact that if you don't have good poison resist, that stuff will melt you.
Yeah, definitely.
And all the little caster skeleton mages all slow you down with, frost attack.
Yeah.
First one's pretty easy, I mean, fire enchanted
Yeah, that's
fallen.
true.
Oh no. But yeah, the Act 5 ones are pretty much the worst. They're extremely resilient. They all have knockback stun attacks. They, just walk up and just smack you around like you're
Yep.
not there.
The Minions of Destruction, which they were created just for this part of the game.
What were their immunities?
I know in Hell you'd get like an immune to physical, and that was the main one.
Right.
He's mostly immune to physical, which frickin' sucked.
They're pretty much entirely immune to poison. I mean, they're not technically, but if you have any kind of poison attack, it takes forever to kill them.
Yeah. They have strong immunities to everything, really.
Yeah, and
Those things are just
they're
battle
pretty fire
tanks.
resistant too.
Yeah.
So I think lightning is really your best bet.
Oh, that's
uh,
right. Lightning does do good against them.
Pretty much everything else, it just takes a while.
And once you kill all those, Bale runs into his little portal, and you chase him for the final showdown. Which, once you get into the Worldstone Chamber, he starts shooting his little tentacles through the ground and whipping you with them. It's really
Yeah.
freaking annoying.
If you're melee, they can actually be very useful because you can either build up charges on them because they're easy to hit, or you can steal life or mana
Yeah,
from them.
I remember doing that as a barb.
If you're a caster, then they pretty much suck all the way
Oh,
around.
that fight blows as a caster. That feedback curse he puts on you.
Oh,
Yeah,
So
Magic
annoying.
Maiden. Not to mention, he really only casts the tentacles if you're a distance from him. So
Right.
as a caster, when you're trying to keep distance, he'll just smack you around with tentacles the whole time. And then his big fiery Inferno blast that he uses close range just melts your mana away.
Yeah,
His frost attack just knocks you back for the duration, and assuming you don't hit a pillar or a wall first. And then lastly, he's got that very odd fire
Nova
Nova.
type
that-
thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Soul Nova.
Yeah.
And then he's got that cool ability where once you get him down to a certain amount of health, he'll actually split himself, make a copy of himself.
Now, I noticed that he's actually far more likely to cast the copy if you have a mercenary with you or someone
Really?
else. if you're doing it solo and there's no one around, it seems like it takes longer or he's less likely to do it. I think he's trying to even the odds. He's like, you got a helper? Well, I got a helper too. What do you think of that?
It's me.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's actually an interesting strategic thing. You can either go for the clone, which doesn't have nearly as much hit points,
Right.
or you can go for him and try and take them both down at once.
Yeah.
Because if he dies, his clone dies. The problem is he can actually recast the clone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the clone always spawns with the same technical amount of life that he does. It's just easier to kill.
Mhm.
So if you've already taken him down a good chunk, that next clone he summons will be even easier to take down.
There's a small way to tell. If you look at the names, it says like Baal, Lord of Destruction, or something like that, and one of the little text parts is off skew on the clone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember which way it is, but yeah, that's how you tell which one's the real one or which one's not.
It's not
I
sitting in the
actually-
right place.
Yeah,
I actually did not know that and never used it because it's fairly easy to tell.
once you
know,
start beating
because-
on them.
Right, and not to mention, if you watch them, it's not like they switch places. If you're following the original, then you know which one's the original.
Yeah, but he does teleport around.
Right, it's only if you're teleporting, he's teleporting, and you're not sure, which one is where anymore.
Yeah.
As a frenzy barb, you never lose track. Where you are.
I never know. I usually end up killing the clone just because it's annoying.
Yeah. Very
Yeah,
annoying.
it's especially annoying because you've doubled up the firing capacity that he has. Like, he'll burn your mana twice as fast. He'll knock you back
Yeah.
twice as much. Just a real pain.
You will permanently have feedback on.
You kill him, and he spews out golden pus blood everywhere.
That's right.
Goes down on all fours. Well, he doesn't really have fours. I guess.
He walks on all fours
sixes.
as it is. It
Yeah.
looks like he's walking on a chair.
He's got like crab legs or something.
He's very odd.
He scuttles.
I like when he close range melees you because he'll stick his arm out and then suddenly it becomes like 50 tentacles. He
Yeah.
slaps you.
Yeah.
It's got a cool little sound too. Perfect. Once you kill him, he goes down on all sixes. Blood starts spewing out from every orifice, and souls start flying out around. And one of his soul heads comes up and starts screaming in bloody murder. And he dies in a steaming pile heap of dead Baal.
He'll
And then the
drop
chamber
out.
starts shaking, and parts of the Worldstone are breaking off. And then Tyrael shows up. He's like, "Good job, hero. Here's a portal for you to take and watch a cool cinematic of me destroying the Worldstone."
By the way, you don't want to stick around here. Bad things will happen.
Yes.
Gamma rays.
Which
You've
all
got
that
leukemia.
all that good stuff happens, which leads us to the events of Diablo 3, where the Worldstone is now destroyed, so the Nephilim today are starting to awaken their powers, because, as we know, the Worldstone was a suppressor of their powers, and now that it's gone, they're able to refine their abilities and become more
Right.
powerful than angels and demons.
The lore technicality there, when Odyssean during the Sin Wars created the Awakening, as it were, he renamed the group the Edorim, and essentially meant those who have seen. In other words, those that have awakened to the truth, as it were. And the Nephilim generally tend to point to the original
Right.
that have essentially long since passed, like Rothma, the kind of founder of the Necromancers, was actually a Nephilim. And you pretty much never see or hear anything about him past the Sin Wars.
Mm-hmm. So these are like the
Volcathos
long
and-
descendants of the Nephilim.
Exactly. So they still exhibit the same potential, more or less. They just obviously look and feel different, as it were. The original Nephilim were really tall, very exceedingly perfect looking, and very strong. So if you saw some dude that was like 8 foot tall and looked like a supermodel, you'd be like, yeah, that's a Nephilim right there. He will kill you.
So in Diablo 3, we're playing Edorim, then? Is that... Or
Well, yes
is it
and
just
no.
more just generally that humans are the...
Humans are essentially all one and the same in that respect. It's just, it kind of implies by way of the storyline that the characters and heroes are actually coming into these types of abilities, because realistically, what kind of human could take on the forces of hell by himself? Well, generally no one, but if you look at the overall grand story, Odyssean, the very first to be awakened, became so powerful, he was like a god. He literally held back the forces of heaven and hell by himself.
Dang.
And literally threatened to destroy everything with his power because it became so great. So
Nice.
when you imagine the power that a human can actually have once they've awakened into their powers, it's pretty much limitless. And so
Exciting.
one of the main story arcs is heaven and hell are both kind of leery of us because we could potentially overcome everything.
Rad.
Oh,
So when you're playing your barbarian, your wizard, your witch doctor, etc., just know you are a force to be reckoned with.
no. Oh, I already knew
Yeah.
that. Come on now. Come on. Who do you think you're
Did we
talking to?
speak... Well, we're sort of talking about the lore transition from the books to... Or from 5 to 3, Diablo 2 to Diablo 3. Did we mention the change in lore from the end of Diablo 1 to Diablo 2?
King Leoric's son.
King Leoric's son. Did
Yeah,
we mention that?
We talked about that.
Right, we did when the announcement hit. He's basically the other son of King Leoric.
It was also
The Dark
funny.
Wanderer is actually the older brother.
Someone was playing through Diablo 1 and found this, I don't know, some story in there where they actually didn't change the lore. It was already in there that the warrior was the son of Leoric.
Oh.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're like,
it is.
Oh, oops. I guess we didn't change anything.
Yeah, when you
Nothing
look
to
at
see here. Move along. Move along.
Yeah.
the original story with Diablo 1 and those keynote details, some of the lore actually never made it into the game. And so I've heard this talked about, by people on the forums and whatnot that started digging into this type of information, even cinematics and things that they were going to work on, different parts of Diablo 1 that never actually made it into the game. And it had a lot of cool aspects like that. So when you say, well, why did they throw this in? It's like, well, the bigger question is, why did they not throw it in originally? And it generally came down to money and time constraints.
Right.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That'll do it for Diablo 2 Act 5 and Diablo 2 in general. We made it through all 5 acts, and there's not really anything else to talk about. So I guess that brings us to news. Ken, what do we have for news this week?
Ooh, a couple of good little things going on.
Mm-hmm.
The new community site is up. It's very nice.
Very nice, very beautiful.
Just as a reminder that you do need to have an active WoW account or a StarCraft 2 account to post on it for now. When the beta is up, you'll be able to use your beta to post on it, and when Diablo 3 is up, you'll need a Diablo 3 account to post on it. You won't be able to post on it with StarCraft 2 or WoW once Diablo 3 is live.
Yeah, it's basically just a very simple licensing issue.
It'll be very nice because I don't know about you, but some of the SC2 people that are posting on it are pretty dumb. Dumb as bricks.
Either that or they simply have not followed any of the stuff up until this point. So
No.
you're like, oh, yeah, let me explain to you what runes are and how they work.
Oh, there's just these posts from things that I haven't seen in like a year and a half. It's like,
Right.
you know that there's going to be new people following it now because they're like, oh, new forums are up? I've never heard of Diablo 3, derp. It's just, oh no, someone brought that up again. But other than that, like I really like the class forums on it. I'm going to go ahead and say that.
Right.
Going into the classes, you generally, I don't know, at least with the wizard one, you're mostly finding people that actually want to play the wizard. So it's nice talking to other people like that.
Generally, if you're looking for a discussion, go to not general.
Right.
Don't go
The
to
other
general.
forums, the other forums, they move much slower than general, so you won't get a response, right away in any real sense. But but you're more likely to get someone who's going to answer your question rather than just troll you.
Right. The items, the trading, the classes page, all of those are actually very limited in the amount of posts, which is really nice because if you post something there, it'll actually be seen.
Yeah.
And it's key to note, and I would use these features. Like, it's very nice. Like, if you want to quote specific parts, and like you can continually quote different people, and it adds it to your post automatically. But
Oh, nice.
use the like and dislike features and all that as well. Like, if you don't like someone's post, you can thumbs down it, and you can either say like it's a troll, it's spam, or it's just a stupid post.
Yeah. And if
And you
there
can
are
like
enough of
posts, too.
those, you just have them kind of hidden away in the background.
It'll bury the post.
Awesome.
Now, I do find it interesting. It's a little weird right now when the game's not out, but it'll hopefully make a bit more sense. There are basically 3 different forums all dedicated to gear.
Yeah,
Really?
that's true.
Because there's the items forum, the trading forum, and the crafting forum.
Okay.
So right now, probably feel free to post your, if it's explicitly about crafting, then you probably want to go there. But so yeah, there's a lot of just helter skelter at the moment.
Right. I actually created a thread on one of the item channels. I think it was just items. And it was basically about a tidbit we'd picked up a while back from Bastiak in saying that, you know how dyes work in the game? They don't actually dye like, a breastplate solid purple or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It does just little highlights
Right.
within the system. So it actually looks like it's, still looks like something. And in that post, there was this idea of, what if I don't like my tier 18 armor? What if I like my tier 16 armor in appearance? Can I make my tier 18 armor look like another tier? And they're like, oh, that's actually a good idea. I imagine we could implement something like that as, being similar to dyes. I wouldn't imagine this would make it into the game initially, but I could see this as being something that comes up later. So I put a thread out there on it. Haven't had any replies on it, but
That's actually what DC Universe Online did, and it's actually a really nice feature.
Awesome.
You don't have to look like in WoW, what it would at Penny Arcade, somewhere between a pimp and a clown.
The funny thing is,
I like
WoW,
my clown pimp.
WoW actually, as of this latest patch that's coming out, will actually allow people to change the appearance of their tier to another one.
Yes, they're putting in a transmogrifier.
Right, as long as you have the item. So, yeah.
That game has definitely been out for a while, if they're doing that.
Yes, it has.
I thought they were going to do that a long time ago. I remember hearing about that. Anyway.
Anywho.
What else do they have on the Diablo 3 community site? They got a lot. They got, when you first go to the site, they got the homepage with like a kind of little mini blog about all their updates and everything. They got a game tab, which is a game guide. It has pretty much, if you ever went to the Elite Summit for Diablo 2, that's what it's going to be. Classes, guide, artisans, items, world, followers. It's going to be a giant database for all that good stuff.
It's going to be so awesome.
Oh, yeah.
You know it. A quick question for you guys, though.
What's up?
When you post on the new forums, what name do you go under? I know Ken still goes under the same name. I saw your posts.
I'm not very original. I've been using this name for like 18 years.
I'm Blood Penguin still. That's I use my StarCraft 2 account since I don't have an active WoW one right now.
Right.
I've been flipping between my StarCraft 2 account, which is LFK again, and my WoW character, who I'm actually just not going to mention because I don't want somebody coming up to me in WoW and like trying to shank me. I think I've made a couple enemies already on the new forum, so
nice. Mine on the forums is a StarCraft 2 account, and it's called Auspicious.
Auspicious.
Nice custom icon on there. I figured.
Did you see my icon?
Yes, I did. I knew exactly what it was the second I saw it. I was like, yeah, he's been playing that game a lot.
It's an Archon, and there's a reason for that. Archons are awesome.
And they're not easy to get. You gotta play through quite a few winning games to get that.
Yeah, well, the Archon was more brutal than anything, just because it was like I almost have one past it, but it's just because it's with random teammates. Oh.
Yeah, that's really always the kiss of death.
Anyways, so the beta pre-invites are going out right now.
That's right.
So these aren't the actual invites. What they are is basically just Blizzard contacting people who are definitely going in and just kind of getting them prepped for it.
Making sure they have Battle.net accounts and all that.
Yeah, so what's going to happen when you get your beta invite, and this also includes if you went to BlizzCon last year, like moi, those invites the BlizzCon invites will actually be sent out after the beta starts. But regardless, when you get a beta invite, it'll be an email, and it's not actually going to send you anywhere. It's just going to tell you to go to your Battle.net account, and from there you can download the beta because it'll be added to your account.
Right.
So, like, to avoid like phishing and scams and all that crap, like you'll never have to go to a site and enter anything in other than Battle.net. You'll never have to download anything from the email. Like the email just says, "Grats, you're in. Go to your Battle.net account."
Right.
And then you freak out and play Diablo 3.
Yeah.
Freak out for a long time. It's required.
But the pre-invites are going out, so getting close.
Yeah.
Close.
Oh, I
Skip some things on the community site. There's a community tab with contests, forums, fan art, and wallpapers. There's a media tab with videos, screenshots, artwork, all that good stuff. Forums, of course. And a services tab. Account services, account security, customer support, parental controls, all that good stuff for Diablo 3.
Under the services tab, there's also a very, very good not Q&A, but like FAQ for the auction house. If you've got any like specific questions about, well, how's it going to work? What about this case? What about this case? Read the FAQ. There's a lot of information in there. A lot of it we've mentioned. There's a bunch of stuff that we haven't because we forgot because there's a ton of it.
Yeah.
And so read that before you go on the forums and start complaining.
Seriously, become an expert, well versed in how the auction house is going to work, and then complain about it.
If you so choose.
What else we got? Diablo beards. Many of the Diablo 3 development team has been growing beards until release. They've all vowed not to cut them, shave them, or do any modifications until the game release, though some have, trimmed them up so they don't look like ruffians. But if you want to partake in that, feel free. Don't shave until Diablo 3 is released.
It's pretty awesome.
That wouldn't go over so well for me.
No?
Probably
Yeah, me
not.
neither. I can't grow a nice, thick Dan beard.
Yeah. See, I now have a goal. When we're at BlizzCon, I must get a picture of me next to Bashiok, because I have heard that his Diablo beard rivals everyone else in the company with both its wiriness, its sparse, its patchiness, and its slow rate of growth.
Nice.
Love you, Bash, but it'll just be that funny.
He did have a nice mustache going on at the media event, I have to say. It was pretty sweet. I was jealous because I can't grow a mustache. But he had a good example of why it's annoying, and he says when he eats a bagel with cream cheese, and he takes a bite, and it just scrapes all the cream cheese off into his beard as he pulls it away.
You people never had facial hair before?
No.
Funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's a Diablo comic book coming out. Who's writing it? I think it's Dark Horse that's taking over, but I'm not sure. Let me find out right now.
Comic book, huh?
Yeah, they started a StarCraft 2 comic book, which I haven't heard anything about a second issue. I know I got the first issue when in the collector's edition, but I don't know anything about that. Of course, there was a Diablo 2 Tales of Sanctuary back in the battle chest. If you're so fortunate to get a copy of that, I have one locked away somewhere. It's a pretty cool comic book. I enjoyed it. It's got like a story about a paladin, a story about a druid who like mauls his brother because he doesn't really know how to control his powers yet. And I think there may be a necromancer story in there too, but I'm not sure.
I got lots of necromancer stories. In fact, the next book is all about the necromancer's ale.
Necromancer's Red.
The final
See if I
book.
can find it. Anyway, I don't know. I'll look up the information if I can find it and throw it up in the show notes if you're interested in that. And let's move on to the skill showcase videos for each class that got mistakenly released or found, if you will. Ken, what are these?
Oh man, they're so good. So basically, it's just probably about a minute and a half-ish to about a minute and a half of each class, basically demonstrating different skills that they have. And it does a bunch with male and then a bunch with the female of each class. And the cool thing is there is not only never before seen skills in it, like Archon, but there's also a lot of different runed skills that we haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So some of them are just so crazy that it's kind of up to speculation as to what they're actually a runed skill of.
And they are glorious.
They are. These are awesome little videos. We'll have a link up to the INC Gamers coverage of it because they have a rundown of the skills that are used, or the skills they speculate are being used. But once I get my computer fix, I'll also try and have these playing right now as we're talking about them in the YouTube version. So look forward to that. We see Archon, which is the wizard skill, turns into this merchant of death, floating merchant of death, pretty much. And Wrath of the Berserker, which is another cool one for the barbarian. He turns into this giant hulking demon type creature that just murders everything. Yeah.
He's like on fire.
Looks like Ifrit.
And among those, we also get some really cool other skills from some of the other classes. So definitely check those out if you are so inclined. One little last bit of news we got is just the BlizzCon 2011 pet for World of Warcraft. It's Mergoblo, Diablo version of the little Murloc pet.
He's adorable. He's not quite Wind Rider Cub adorable, but he's still pretty cute.
Yep, you get a little Diablo Murloc to follow you around. And I guess that's all the news we got, unless there are other little tidbits around that I don't know about, that you gentlemen do.
Just a lot of complaining about the auction house.
Yeah, I haven't been around the forums at all lately. School started, and I don't know, I've just had a lot on my plate recently. Plus, there's like 2 different forums now, the old forums and the new forums, so it's all pretty overwhelming.
The old forums are so slow now. I for the first time actually went into the no internet equals no Diablo 3. We're on part 4 now. This is like, what kind of discussion is going on here that it warrants a part 4? And then I found out it's just the guy who started it arguing with a whole bunch of other people who were telling him he's stupid and needs to shut up now.
Don't feed the trolls, people.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah, I kind of figured that's what it was. I saw, I think the first part, and I kept seeing more and more. I was like, yeah, I'm not going back there.
Well, usually if a thread ends up at a part 4 without hitting page count, it's because the others were deleted.
Oh, and some people just never give up. Yeah, that'll bring us to the end of our show. That's all the news and that good stuff that we got. So it's time to say goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, gentlemen.
Goodbye, everyone.
Farewell, Loyal 8.
We'll see you all next time on the Worldstone Keep.